Visit our sponsor, Powerful Products, at powerfulproducts.com right now. Click the link below.
Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning in to AMTV, Alternative Media Television. So when did we become such a self-hating, self-loathing, self-deprecating, politically correct till we're blue in the face, horseshit, bullshit society? Case in point, famed rocker Ted Nugent had to apologize to Rand Paul, of which, and who by the way benefits from Ted Nugent's fame and base, had to apologize for calling Hillary Clinton the C word, the viled and reviled C word. In fact, according to Ted Nugent in his interview on CNN, he really pissed off Rand Paul. You know, instead of demanding an apology from people like Ted Nugent, who people like me agree with, who also fuel the fire to your base, Rand, you should be apologizing to Ted Nugent. Ted Nugent has every right to call Hillary Clinton the C word, a two-bit, $2 Benghazi covering up whore. That is his right. He also has every right, as he recently did, to call politicians mongrels, whether or not he inferred that was the president or not. He also used the word chimpanzee. He has every right to vocalize and voice his opinion as an American, as a radical. Remember, it was our founding fathers that were radicals, that got shit done in this country, that fought back against the redcoats. They didn't try to, play the game of assimilation, the Obama-Saul Alinsky tactic to integrate and to mainline within the mainstream criminal cartel that makes up Washington today. And that's the point, Rand. Washington is criminal. You're trying to assimilate and mainline into a criminal enterprise. You can dance around it. You can play games. You can do things that I totally respect, that I think is a good thing in Washington, D.C. Case in point, an example being your filibuster regarding drone strikes. But is it really getting anything done? Or are people like Ted Nugent the ones getting things done? Instead of criticizing people like Ted, you should be giving him an even larger platform. You should encourage a more radical message. He's pointing out something that Americans already know, that we have criminals in Washington, D.C. And you know what? Ted Nugent has every right to hate these people. He has every right to hate Hillary Clinton and hate the President of the United States. It was funny. I was watching Erin Burnett. She was the interviewer of Ted Nugent last night. She was from CNBC. I recognize her there. Now she's on CNN. She was having to go out of her way to defend CNN as a network because she fears a reprisal from CNN. She might be fired considering the remarks that Ted Nugent was saying. She was scared. She had to say things like, well, I respect Wolfie Blitzer very, very much, Ted. And then she had to point a finger at Ted and try to paint this narrative, as the mainstream media does, that he's some crazy person, that he's some crazy conservative, that he has a war on women. When he doesn't have a war on anything. He's just stating his opinion. And he doesn't have to apologize. Erin Burnett even went a step further and said that he has to respect the President of the United States. Ted Nugent doesn't have to respect shit. That's what freedom of speech is all about, bitch. He doesn't have to respect you. He doesn't have to respect CNN. And he does not, sure as hell, have to respect the President of the United States. Respect is earned. These people are supposed to represent us. We're the ones that elect them. They should demand our respect, not the other way around. And it just goes to show you what a bullshit, insane asylum society that we live in today. A society that will endorse people like Bill Maher calling Sarah Palin the C word, but will ridicule people like Ted Nugent when he does the same thing and points out the same fact about Hillary Clinton. This is the society that we live in. Our founding fathers got shit done. Ted Nugent gets shit done. He tells it like it is. He doesn't pander around this mainstream bullshit system. This is the problem with America today. This bullshit society of political correctness. You know, you don't want to step on anybody's toes. You don't want to offend an Aaron Burnett or women or gays or anyone else. You've got to pander to what the masses, the liberal media conveys. And it's bullshit. It's utterly detestable. And no one should have to apologize for vocalizing their real, true, authentic opinion in America today. You know, they're working on passing some new gay legislation here in Arizona. And Governor Jan Brewer is under a lot of heat. The gay population in general is making it about a war on homosexuals, when it could be anything but the truth. This is actually a war against freedom. This is a war against the freedom of religion, of spirituality, of having free speech in this country. Something that the liberal left takes for granted. Something that the liberal left, people like Aaron Burnett, abhor. You know, these people are what is wrong with America today. Ted Nugent is what is right with America today. If, for example, two homosexuals enter my cake shop because I'm in the cake making business, and they ask me to bake them a cake and draw with frosting the two of them blowing each other, and I refuse as a shopkeeper, as an owner of my bakery pie shop, I have every right to do so under my freedom of religion and under my belief system that I don't believe in homosexuality. It doesn't mean that I have anything against homosexuals or gays or lesbians, trisexuals, quadrisexuals, or quintisexuals. It doesn't mean any of that. It's protecting my freedom as a person here under the constitutional republic, something that we used to value. My freedom not to fear an act of reprisal or a sue-happy American culture from suing the shit out of me so I have to go out of business because I refuse service based on my belief system, based on my religion. You see, this is a narrow bill. But the gay population, or must I say the media in general, is crafting a narrative that this is a war on all gays. Just like Aaron Burnett is trying to craft the impression that Ted Nugent has a war on women for calling Hillary Clinton a C word, or a war on the president in Washington because he uses the words chimpanzees or mongrel, which he uses with his own bandmates. Ted Nugent isn't racist. He's just a real person with a real belief system, and he's putting out the truth to the American people. And the American people don't like the truth. It's because American politicians and the mainstream media pander to the minority why we have a revoking of our freedom, of the very principles that make this country so great. You know, the gay population makes up maybe 3%, maybe 5% of the country's population. Yet we give them more advantages, and we gear laws, and the mainstream media pitches a narrative around the minority, around the 3% or the 5%. My question is, what about the majority? What about their freedom? What about the conservative Christian, the Roman Catholic, the Jew, the Muslim? What about them? Are they being protected, or are they being screwed over by this politically correct bullshit society that people like Ted Nugent have hit the nail on the head with? Again, we should be encouraging people like Ted Nugent. We should encourage them to become more radical, to tell us exactly like and how it is. If he hates people like Hillary Clinton and the President of the United States, he has every right to state his opinion as it is. Just like you have every right, Aaron Burnett, and Hillary Clinton has every right, and the President of the United States has every right to air their opinion as it is. You know, another thing I wanted to talk about was the president made some of the most racist comments that I had ever seen in the history of watching national television last night. He was on The View, and he called himself, using in his own words, and the black people in general, mongrels, which I kind of found offensive. And then he took it a step further, as myself and a family member, a close family member of mine, watched this ensue. He inferred that black people, while looking at Whoopi Goldberg, understand the mongrel people better than white people, to the other white ladies on The View. In fact, one of them bowed their heads when the president said this. I mean, think about it. It's the most powerful person on the planet in the free world. The family member that sat next to me said that was the most racist thing they'd ever heard of come out of anybody's mouth ever, whether it was from the president or anybody else. And she, as a Caucasian, was offended by the president's remarks. You know, if I, as president, as a white Caucasian male, made that inference that white people understand what it is to be a mongrel more than black people, I would be crucified in front of America as a white supremacist, Nazi, Hitler-loving, white power freak. But when the President of the United States does it, people laugh it off. They brush it off over their right shoulder or their left shoulder. Just like they brush off the comments, the heinous comments of Bill Maher, who has every right to vocalize his opinion that he thinks Sarah Palin is a C word, just like Ted Nugent does. But in a world dominated by a liberal, leftist, mainstream media agenda, which controls the narrative in this country and actually makes it about issues, about things that it's actually really not, case in point being this new gay bill, which is very narrow in its remarks and really only protects the great majority in this country from religious persecution, make it into issues, make it into these viral Coney 2012 type issues that pinpoint people like Ted Nugent like there's some kind of radical terrorist. Well, you know what? Our founding fathers were radical terrorists. They fought back against the Redcoats. They fought back against Great Britain. And they also won. And these same individuals, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, George Washington, and others, would be calling, just like Ted Nugent did yesterday, Hillary Clinton a C word, the president a mongrel, if not a chimpanzee. Because these people stood up for what they believed in, they stood up and founded America, and they established these great principles in this constitutional republic as it is today. Something which liberals and even some mainlining libertarians just don't seem to agree with. I call bullshit. I say we support Ted Nugent. In fact, if Ted Nugent wants to run for any political office, you have my blessing, Ted. I will put the full force and weight of my alternative media platform behind you. It might not be much, but it's also uncensored. I'm Christopher Green. Get it out everywhere. Make it viral. Hard-hitting it in your face. Peace.